Today we're going to be talking about fossil fuels, and we are into our non-renewable resources. And it's really important to understand where fossil fuels come from and how we use them, and what their effects are, because this is the main cause of climate change. And so obviously that is of much concern today. So the world and the United States use energy in different ways. Here in the United States, we only have about 7% renewable energy, whereas in the world, they're up at about 15%. So if you go over into the European countries, it's actually a lot higher. Remember, this world diagram here, this world pie chart, is actually just representative of the entire world. So if we were to look at a European country, that renewable number would be a lot higher. What is common is that non-renewables make up a lot of what we do use around the world. Oil being the absolute number one fossil fuel that we consume worldwide. So global energy consumption is definitely something that we want to look at. You can see that the United States has about 26,000 megawatt hours. And China has 28,000 megawatt hours, and we are definitely the largest consumers. However, when you compare the number of people in each of those countries, it's quite different if we were to maybe take a look at the per capita usage. So the United States is definitely up there in the world leaders in per capita energy use. Again, here's another look at how United States uses energy. Again, petroleum or oil is actually the highest. It's what we use the most through transportation is really the big thing. Natural gas and coal is where we have our electricity uses. So, while we may want to switch our electricity, we from from non-renewable to renewable, we also really need to think about our transportation, because petroleum is what we use the most, and that is used in transportation. And so the world energy resources actually all stem directly from the sun, or all stem from the sun. So directly, we can harness that through solar power or water heating, and even wind power is considered a directly from the sun, because they drive our convection cells around the Earth, with our Hadley, Farrell, and polar cells as a throwback there. But indirectly, right, oil, coal, and natural gas are formed from what used to be living. So we have plant and animal material that has since died and covered over, and they wouldn't have been alive without the sun. So we can say indirectly, fossil fuels came from the sun also. And again, our energy comes from non-renewable resources around the world. So, a little lesson on energy. The ability to do work is the definition of what energy actually is. And so there's a difference between potential and kinetic energy. So potential energy is either stored up chemically. So in fossil fuels, the energy is actually stored, locked into those bonds in the material. And then when we combust them, we can release them. Whereas gravitational energy is also potential energy, because it's just sitting in a reservoir. But when that water actually falls down the dam, it is turned into kinetic energy. And so kinetic energy is the energy of movement. So wind, water, even the sun's energy is moving, and so that is kinetic energy. And so when we are trying to generate energy, we really want to pay attention to net energy, because it takes energy to make energy. So whatever we make, we have to take away what we use to make it, and that is our net energy. And so conventional fossil fuels or oil has a very high net energy ratio, meaning that we make a lot of energy and we don't put as much into it. Whereas renewables, actually, while we may not put a lot into it, we actually don't gain that much either, which, is a source of contention among people who are fighting over how we should be making energy. Again, a little bit more on energy, the laws of thermodynamics. So the first law is pretty much saying you can't get something for nothing. Energy can't be created or destroyed. So um, you have to put in energy to get energy out. Whereas the second law of thermodynamics is just saying that the energy that we take from one system and move to a different system is not efficient. So we lose a lot of that energy. So we can't get 100% transformation. So, um, different energy has different qualities. So, going into fossil fuels, there are three kinds, right? There is coal, petroleum, and natural gas. And so, we'll look a little bit more at the structures of what they are, but the difference between them is the structure and what they're made of. So, coal is mostly carbon with a bunch of impurities. Petroleum is hydrocarbons with impurities. And natural gas is also mostly just hydrocarbons with very, very few impurities. And so we take these fossil fuels and we combust them using fire. And as we well know by now, we have a fire triangle, and that adds in oxygen into the mix. So you take your hydrocarbon, you add oxygen, and you end up with carbon dioxide, water, and energy, which is what we want. Those impurities that are in coal and oil will give us pollution like sulfur and mercury, right? So any kind of like heavy metal and stuff like that. Whereas the imperfect combustion causes different kinds of pollution, the air pollutants that we talked about. So particulate matter, so carbon or soot, carbon monoxide, NOx, and carbon dioxide, again, is not considered a criteria air pollutant, as crazy as that sounds, but it does cause carbon dioxide. And so we use fossil fuels everywhere in the home. Everything that you have is touched by fossil fuels. Even solar panels, their structure are made from fossil fuels. But even like your carpeting, the particle board that's in your furniture, your shower curtain, all of the things that we use in like pesticides and fertilizers that we use in agriculture, those are all stemming from fossil fuels. And so everything that you have in your life has been touched by fossil fuels in some way, whether it's made from them or they've been manufactured by them. And so, in order to manufacture something, we need electricity, and pretty much our entire world runs on electricity right now. And to do that, we burn fossil fuels um, or hopefully some other renewable, to then produce heat. The heat will boil the water. The water will produce steam. The steam will turn the turbine, which um, will rotate the magnet in a generator, which can then be converted into electricity that will be sent through power lines. And so here is a diagram of a coal plant that, right, the steam is turning the turbine, which is then creating electricity and giving us power to our homes. Fossil fuels have lots of advantages, which is why we use them. So they're easy to store and transport. Like we talked about before, there's a high net energy production. So you need a little bit to produce a lot of energy. Well-established distribution systems. With natural gas, there's actually pretty low air pollution except for the carbon dioxide. Huge possible reserves, which are finite. Well-developed extraction technologies because we put a lot of money and time into them. It's convenient. And like I said, large amounts of energy are produced from small amounts of the resource. Whereas lots of disadvantages as well. Again, we can run out because it's a finite resource. High carbon dioxide emissions when burned. Large scale pollution with those impurities. The environment gets damaged heavily. They cause severe land and wildlife damage. Just think about mining and getting coal out of there. There's a relatively high economic and environmental cost of extraction, so it's very expensive. resources become difficult